How did Hollywood's most rugged cowboy, Sam Elliott, go from legendary silver screen icon to living a life so quiet, so heart-wrenchingly private, it's breaking fans' heart? At 80, his reality isn't what anyone expected. And the truth? It's hidden behind that iconic mustache. Stick around, because what you're about to discover will change the way you see Sam Elliott forever. He carries those memories like shadow, some dark, some distant. A father who never believed in his dream. A home torn apart by violence and regret. Even though Sam later mended the broken pieces of his family life, the weight of what once was never fully left him. Audiences saw the tough guy in movies, but the real strength was what he held together when no one was watching. Sam's roots were a far cry from Hollywood glamour. Born on August 9, 1944, in Sacramento, California, he came from a family defined by grit, not glitz. His mother, Glenn, had been a state diving champion before becoming a school teacher, and his father, Henry, spent his days tracking wild animals for the Department of the Interior. These weren't people chasing fame. They were the kind of folks who built things with their hands and didn't shy away from danger. Sam was raised among beehives in the backyard and long summer days at the state fair, growing up in a neighborhood where kids sang in the church choir and biked until dusk. In the sun-soaked days of the 1950s, young Sam lived a life that now feels like something from a lost American postcard. He'd pedal his bike all the way to the Sacramento River, daring the sunset to catch him before he got home. He joined his father on rugged treks into the Sierra Nevada, fishing and hiking through the deep woods of places like Wentworth Spring. Those adventures didn't just entertain him, they forged him. They made him fall in love with the land, with silence, with the solitude of nature. It was that spirit, not acting school, that would later define the cowboys he'd bring to life. But then came a shift. At 13, Sam's life was uprooted. His father got reassigned, and the family relocated to Portland, Oregon. For Sam, it felt like losing the only world he knew. Yet even in this unfamiliar place, that connection to nature and resilience remained his constant. And it was just a few years earlier, around the age of 9, that the idea of acting had first entered his mind. Lazy Saturday, watching westerns and sci-fi flicks with his sister, sparked something deep. One day, he simply said it aloud. He wanted to act. His father was not amused. To him, acting was a fantasy, something no serious man would pursue. "You've got a snowball's chance in hell," he told Sam. And that single sentence became an anchor and a spark. Even as they drifted apart, Sam kept performing in school plays, chasing the stage one stubborn step at a time. He got noticed. A newspaper review once declared he should go professional after a college theater role, and that praise hit harder than his father's doubt. But life had other plans. Just after high school in 1962, his father died suddenly. The rift between them was never healed, and Sam has since admitted it still haunts him. "It kills me to talk about it," he once said. But that pain didn't weaken him. It gave him purpose. His dad's disbelief became a voice he worked to silence with every audition. Sam left college and joined the California Air National Guard in 1966. His role was crucial, loading and balancing cargo on military planes. By day, he handled missions. By night, he dove into acting classes. Even after 12-hour shift, he'd show up to rehearse, exhausted but unwavering. He didn't see combat, something that weighed heavily on him, but those years gave him the discipline and quiet strength he'd later channel into some of his most memorable roles. By 1967, he was in Los Angeles, surviving on hope and $100. He slept in his car and faced rejection after rejection. Casting directors didn't know what to do with a 6'2" guy with a preacher's voice and cowboy mannerisms. He worked construction, auditioning with dust still on his boot. His first job? An extra in The Way West. No lines, just $50. But in 1968, he landed 3 lines on Judd for the Defense. And that voice, low, grounded, unforgettable, stole the scene. Producers even rewrote it just to keep his line. That voice would later be insured for $1 million. In those early years, he barely made enough to live, just $3,800 in 1968, but he kept grinding. Casting directors began to take note of his look and voice. He bulked up for role, waking before dawn to lift weight. For Gunsmoke, he even trained his voice to drop 12 hertz. People began calling him walking testosterone, and John Wayne's ghost. But beneath that rugged image was a man still chasing the approval his father never gave him. One comment almost pushed him out for good. A producer mocked his service, calling it playing soldier. It stung, but it also steeled him. Sam swore he'd never play a soldier or a cowboy without putting his soul into it. Because for him, these weren't just characters. They were reflections of a life lived under pressure. In a twist of fate, Sam and future wife Katharine Ross once appeared in the same film, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, without ever meeting. He played a silent card player. She had a lead role. They wouldn't cross paths until nearly a decade later in 1978, on the set of The Legacy in London. His breakout wasn't glamorous. His first leading role was in a 1972 horror flick called Frogs, where nature turns against mankind. It didn't earn critical praise, but Sam's performance left an impression. He gave seriousness to a story that could have been laughable. Even decades later, that strange little film keeps showing up on late-night TV. Sam Elliott's climb to recognition wasn't a rocket. It was a slow, steady march. In 1969, he began making rounds on TV, from Lancer to Mission Impossible. He played background roles in westerns, did beer commercials, and kept showing up. Piece by piece, the image formed. A tall, lean figure with a presence that couldn't be ignored. He wasn't famous yet, but everyone who saw him knew he belonged. Then came the moment that truly set things in motion. Lifeguard, 1976. A modest film by Hollywood standards, just $900,000 in budget, yet it reeled in over $5.4 million. But it wasn't just the numbers that mattered. Sam Elliott, in the role of Rick Carlson, a 32-year-old man clinging to the simplicity of his beachside life, was no longer just a face with a mustache. He was a presence. And in many ways, this role wasn't fiction. His parents had once worked as lifeguards, so had he. That history flowed naturally into the calm defiance and quiet introspection Rick showed on screen. It wasn't a performance, it was a reflection. Paramount, for reasons of its own, shelved the film for a full year. During that time, Elliott took a gamble, turning down every television role that came his way, convinced that Lifeguard would be the doorway to something greater. And when it finally released, it wasn't the mindless beach flick critics were bracing for. Instead, it delivered a quiet punch of nostalgia, longing, and identity. This was no surfer dude story. It was the blueprint for what Sam would become. Steady, emotionally rooted, the kind of man who said little, but meant every word. Audiences didn't forget. And just as his career was shifting, fate reached out from the past. Katharine Ross, elegant, sharp, unforgettable. They had first crossed paths on Butch Cassidy, but she barely noticed him then, her attention drawn elsewhere, he'd later joke. But on the set of The Legacy, the stars aligned. On-screen chemistry turned real. Ross was married, Sam was single and 34, but the pull was undeniable. Their off-screen romance simmered quietly, respectfully. It wasn't immediate. When she finalized her divorce in 1979, she and Sam didn't just rush into love, they built it slowly. 5 years later, they married. A Hollywood union, yes, but unlike the others in Ross's past, this one endured. Over 40 years later, they're still together. With the 80s rolling in, Sam leaned harder into the genre that had once felt like a stereotype, Western. He joined forces with Tom Selleck for The Sackett, portraying Tel Sackett, a Civil War veteran navigating a rugged, uncertain America. Filmed across 3 states, it connected deeply with fans who saw something genuine in the grit and landscape. Then came The Shadow Riders in 1982, another Louis L'Amour adaptation, another frontier brotherhood. This time, Elliott played Dal Travin, a man chasing down his kidnapped kin. And yes, Katharine Ross was right there beside him. For the first time since their love became real, audiences could feel it. It became clear Sam wasn't just playing cowboys, he was one, at least in spirit. His roots ran deep. One of his ancestors had reportedly fought at the Alamo. The accent, the posture, the respect for tradition. It wasn't put on, it was part of him. So when The Yellow Rose premiered in 1983, it felt like destiny. He played Chance McKenzie, a rancher's illegitimate son fighting to claim his place. The show debuted strong, over 16 million tuned in, but as viewership dipped, NBC pulled the plug after just 22 episodes. Still, its theme song soared to #1 on the Billboard country chart, and fans kept it alive. When NBC aired reruns in 1990, it proved something. Even if a show fades, Sam's performances leave echoed. Then, a twist in the story that no one expected. In 1985, Elliott was basking in post-honeymoon bliss in Hawaii when a call came. Audition for Mask. He wasn't interested, but Ross, seeing something he couldn't yet, secretly called his agent. "I'll get him there," she said, and she did. He returned, auditioned, and won the role of Gar, a biker with grit and a heart. It was a curveball, tough exterior, but gentle soul. His portrayal stood out. Here was a man who could show warmth without softness, love without vulnerability. It was transformative. The cowboy had depth, and behind the scenes, life was changing fast. Just months earlier, on May 1st, 1984, he and Ross had tied the knot, and by September 17th of that same year, they welcomed their daughter, Cleo Rose. So when Mask hit theaters, Sam wasn't just tackling role, he was changing diapers, learning lullabies, and discovering the quiet heroism of fatherhood. There's something quietly moving about that contrast. The man who had once stood tall in spurs was now pacing the floor with a newborn, and yet he never stopped working. Between 1987 and 1989, Sam switched gears again, this time diving into action. Fatal Beauty came first, with Whoopi Goldberg as his co-star. The pace was brutal, the stakes were high, but Sam brought his signature weight to every frame. Then came Shakedown in 1988, a narcotics thriller with Peter Weller. Critics weren't unanimous, but Roger Ebert called Sam strong and convincing. It may not have shattered box office records, but it kept his momentum alive. Then Roadhouse, 1989, loud, raw, electric. Patrick Swayze was the lead, but Elliott, as Wade Garrett, became a legend. The budget was $15 million. The box office? Over $61 million worldwide. But more than the numbers, it was his energy. Long gray hair, gravel voice, eyes that warned you not to cross him. A mentor, a brawler, a man who'd been through hell and wasn't afraid of another trip. He wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. He just was the spotlight. And then, just as he had done before, Elliott pivoted again. Not away from action, not away from Western, but toward storytelling with substance. In 1991, he co-wrote and starred in Conager, adapting a L'Amour story once more. He didn't just perform, he built it, writing, producing, acting. With Ross at his side, it became a family project. It earned him a Golden Globe nomination and a Bronze Wrangler Award. He wasn't chasing trends, he was defining them. By the time the 90s closed, Sam had shown the world that he wasn't just a character actor. He was the steady pulse behind every story he touched. Even when he stepped into the strange dreamscape of The Big Lebowski in 1998, audiences listened. He wasn't in every scene, but when he was, you couldn't look away. That voice, that calm, that wisdom. Sometimes there's a man, the line etched into cinematic history. It wasn't just narration, it was prophecy. And just like that, a new generation fell under his spell. Sam Elliott was already etched into the American imagination as the dusty cowboy with the thunderous voice. But in 2003, he traded the prairies for something far less predictable, a comic book battlefield. As General Thunderbolt Ross in Hulk, Sam brought more than just military gravitas. He brought soul. He hadn't even cracked open the script when he said yes. He just trusted Ang Lee that much. And when he delivered the chilling line, "I'm the guy who had your father tossed away, and I'll do the same with you," it hit like a cannon blast. It was more than a threat, it was legacy speaking. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, in 2007, he took another turn into supernatural territory. In Ghost Rider, Elliott played a haunted mentor to Nicolas Cage, riding ghostly horses through hellfire like it was just another dusty trail. Fans who'd known him for classic westerns now watched in awe as he embodied something both mystical and grounded. His presence was calming, even when the screen burned. That's the thing with Sam. He doesn't just show up, he steadies the storm. By 2009, he briefly popped up in Up in the Air opposite George Clooney. It was just a single scene, but Sam's delivery as a seasoned pilot added unexpected weight to a film that went on to earn 6 Oscar nominations. That same year, though, the wind shifted. Did you hear about The Morgan? Felt like a guaranteed hit with stars like Hugh Grant and Sarah Jessica Parker, and Sam anchoring it with his signature grit. But bad timing is merciless. It launched against Avatar. The movie flopped hard. American audiences barely noticed it. Despite an $85 million haul worldwide, only a third came from the US. It was a rare misfire. But 2015, That year reminded Hollywood that Sam Elliott doesn't fade, he evolved. In I'll See You in My Dreams, he played a man who brought joy and renewal to Blythe Danner's grieving widow. The boat's name, So What, captured the attitude perfectly. Sam wasn't just portraying resilient, he was resilient. That same year he voiced Butch in Pixar's The Good Dinosaur. Kids may not have known his name, but they recognized something timeless in his growl. He brought cowboy swagger to a dinosaur, and somehow, it worked. Then came 2017. The hero wasn't just a movie, it was a mirror. Sam played Lee Hayden, an aging actor with a failing body and a fractured past. Director Brett Haley crafted the film for Sam, and it showed. Audiences saw the echoes of Sam's own journey, yet he made it clear. Lee had let life slip through his fingers. Sam never did, and just a year later, at age 74, Hollywood finally caught up. His role in A Star Is Born earned him his first Oscar nomination. Every word he spoke as Bobby Maine, older brother to Bradley Cooper's character, cut with quiet sorrow and loyalty. Their scenes weren't just acted, they were lived. Cooper trained 4 months just to sound like Sam. That's reverent. The recognition came pouring in. He wasn't in many scenes, but each moment felt like a lifetime. The National Board of Review honored him. Award shows couldn't stop nominating him, but Sam didn't crow about it. He stayed grounded, like always. By 2021, Sam returned to his root. 1883 was as close to old-school Western as modern TV gets. Playing Shea Brennan, a grieving man tasked with leading settlers through unforgiving terrain, Sam dug deep. His performance wasn't just strong, it was soul-crushing. When he burned the bodies of his wife and daughter in the opening scene, you felt every second of those 55 years in Hollywood behind his eye. No longer the invincible cowboy, he became the heart of the frontier. On February 26, 2023, he took the stage at the SAG Award. At 78, he didn't just win, he moved the room. Competing with Steve Carell and Evan Peters, he stood humble, thanking everyone but himself. He called it the most meaningful moment of his career. He said he wasn't even sure he deserved it. That's Sam Elliott. No ego, all truth. But his life hasn't been without its shadow. In March 2011, a deeply troubling event unfolded at home. His daughter, Cleo Rose Elliott, lashed out during a heated argument with her mother, Katharine Ross. The incident left emotional scars, and Ross eventually sought court protection. Cleo, who once dreamed of a music career, went silent. Public appearances vanished, but healing, though slow, arrived. In 2018, Cleo appeared at the A Star Is Born premiere with both parents. By Christmas 2022, she posted a simple photo, doing a puzzle with her mother, a quiet reconciliation that spoke volume. And when Ross turned 83 in 2024, their closeness looked real. Whatever happened, they'd found a way forward. Through it all, Sam and Katharine remained unshaken. Married since 1984, their bond withstood public scrutiny, personal crisis, and 4 decades of relentless industry pressure. Their love began on a film set in London. Sam had admired her from afar since Butch Cassidy, but they didn't speak until The Legacy. When he got the call to audition for Mask, they cut their honeymoon short so he could chase it. That's what partnership looks like: sacrifice and trust. Now in 2025, at 80 years old, Sam isn't bowing out. He's joined Landman, Taylor Sheridan's next project, alongside Billy Bob Thornton, and there's buzz that he might step back into the dusty boots of the Roadhouse franchise. Still lending that iconic voice to political ads and animation, he's somehow become more relevant than ever. Sam Elliott has never chased the spotlight. He earned it, and in a town that loves youth and reinvention, he proved that depth, humility, and craftsmanship never go out of style. His voice may be gravel, but his legacy, solid gold. And that's the story behind Sam Elliott's quiet life at 80. Iconic, bittersweet, and still unforgettable. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Because the legends, they never ride off alone.